So welcome everyone to today's class. Today we are looking at an academic task 1 table question for the IELTS exam. And the question that we're looking at is this one that should be up on the screen. Anyone watching this on YouTube, I am here with some of the students from our course. We're going to basically today go through this question and see how we would write it together. So I'm going to be asking my students for some feedback, and we're going to be looking at what are the important things to think about when doing an academic task 1 task. Tables often cause students a lot of trouble. The reason for this is that there's a lot of information. So let's work it out. Let's see how we can break it down, make it as simple as possible. And hopefully after today's class, tables are not going to be as daunting anymore. Okay, so guys, what is the very first thing that we need to do? Or should I say ladies? Because I think everyone here today. So Mary says question analysis. Gabby says question analysis. Exactly. What kind of, hello Tara, welcome to the class. What kind of things do we need to think about when we're analyzing an academic task 1 question? Tamara saying big numbers or small numbers. So yeah, that's more. So Tamara, that'd be a little bit more of when we're getting into the key features. So when we're thinking about the overview, for example, we have to think about key features. But when we're just looking at the graph in general, so yeah, we want to first off we want to think about is it asking us for trends over time? Or is it asking us for compare and contrast? So looking at this, and I would say most tables, are they asking us for trends over time, or they can compare and contrast? So yeah, this is definitely a compare and contrast. If we see here, we've got 1 year. There's only the 1 year. So we're going to be thinking about comparisons more than trends. So I think next week we'll have a look at a trend over time graph and see how we deal with them differently. So what else do we want to think about? So compare and contrast. Gabby says, how many categories? Yeah, exactly. And really, what are the categories? So if we're looking here at this graph, what are our main categories? Are they the categories at the top or the categories on the side? So something here, what you'll usually find, if you have countries, your countries tend to be your main categories. Okay, so this is the reason we need to think about what are our categories, because we have to think about grouping the data. So when we have countries, I said, think about your countries as your main categories. Okay. And then we've got subcategories which are relating to these countries. So it's much more important to think about Ireland, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Turkey. These are the main things we're talking about. And these are subcategories of food, drinks, tobacco, clothing, footwear, leisure, and education. These are the like subcategories. So our main categories are the countries. And how many countries do we have? 5, yeah. So skipping ahead a little bit to when we're going to think about key features and thinking about grouping of data. If we've got 5, how many countries are we going to talk on each details paragraph? Yeah, 3 and 2. So we can just keep that in mind as we're going along, that we always need 2 details paragraphs. So that means we're going to split our main categories as evenly as possible. So here, obviously, we can't do it perfectly evenly, so we're going to do 3 and 2. What else do we need to think about? So Gabby was saying key features. So key features can come a little bit later. So the key features we think about after we've analyzed the question. So we're just jumping ahead a little bit. So we are definitely going to need to think about key features, but something before we think about key features. Tamara says percentages. So yeah, what are percentages? Why are percentages important here? Percentages are exactly, Mary, yeah, the unit of measurement. So we always want to think about what is it being, what are the figures we're talking about going to be recorded as? So are they going to be percentages? Are they a number of people? Are they, for example, a price? So here we can see that it's definitely all in percentages. Also, we want to be looking at the question to see exactly what it's asking. So it says, the table below gives information on consumer spending on different items in 5 different countries. So we're talking about spending, but we're not talking about how much we're spending. So we're talking about percentages. So how does percentages and consumer spending relate? Why are we talking about consumer spending and percentages? Okay, Mary said it's because of the percentage of national consumer expenditure. So yeah, the percentage of their money that people in these different countries spent on these different categories. The categories they're spending money on, we've got food, drinks, and tobacco. They're spending money on clothing and footwear and leisure and education. Are these percentages adding up to 100? No, so that obviously means that people are spending money on other things. So it's not the only things that people are spending money on. So maybe that's important later on. We're not sure, but just so we know, it's not going to add up to 100. Anything else that's really important before we start when we're planning and we're trying to work out important key things that we should be thinking about? So we said, is it going to be trends? Is it compare and contrast? The type of graph is very important. So this is obviously a table. The unit of measurement. What will help us with grammar? What will be something that's quite important with grammar? Aha. Tamara says, past simple. So basically, we want to think about verb tense. So you'll find with the majority of academic task 1, past simple is going to be the tense we're writing in. Why is past simple going to be the tense we're writing in for a lot of our academic task 1? What is the grammar rule that makes things here past simple? Mara saying, yeah, in fact, so we know that it's in the past because we've got a date in the past. And we know that these are all completed actions in the past. So people in Ireland spent this amount of money in 2002. It's completed. So all these things here, they are completed actions in the past. And that's the reason you use the past simple. When might we use different tenses? Mary was saying in a map, yeah, in a map we certainly might. You might use the present perfect because you might be comparing present to the past. Gary mentions if something's over time. So yeah, especially if we've got predictions. So we don't have predictions here, so we don't have to worry, but sometimes you are asked to predict. And again, what would we do? Let's say we had this chart, but it doesn't tell us it's in 2002. Are we still going to use the past simple? No. Yeah, we use the present. So if we're not actually given a date, so sometimes you get a chart very, very similar to this, but it will just say this is a percentage of national consumer expenditure by category. If there's no date given, then you use present. But if they specifically give you a time in the past, like we have here, we know we're going to use the past simple. So that's really important to make sure that we know that the verb tenses we're going to use. So I've heard a lot of IELTS teachers tell their students they should try and use as many tenses as possible. Is this good advice? No, it's terrible advice. I don't know where this has come from. I've heard so many teachers, I've even heard teachers at British Council say this. You do not want to force tenses. That you are graded on using your grammar appropriately. Here we have completed actions in the past, so we're going to use appropriate grammar. Don't start trying to force the past perfect in when it doesn't go. All what's going to happen is your writing is going to sound very, very unnatural, and it's going to reduce your grammar score. So in the IELTS exam, we use tenses when it is appropriate. Sometimes you'll get given a question, and one of your questions might be compare something in the past to the present. Then we're using the present perfect because that is the appropriate tense. So you've always got to be thinking what is appropriate, and don't try and stuff as many tenses in as possible because that's really going to hurt your writing. Okay, so these are the things that I would say are absolute key here. So the type of chart, so here we've obviously got a table. Compare and contrast, is it over time or both? We know very much this is compare and contrast. How many categories? We're saying 5 because we're going by country. Verb tense, we only need 1. That's simple. Are we likely to use a passive voice here? That's correct. No. No need for the passive voice here. What type of academic task 1 use a passive voice? Because there's definitely a couple of questions that you'll use a passive voice a lot in. There are 2 types in particular. So yeah, Tamara was saying process questions and map questions. Exactly. Our unit of measurement, percentage. And do we have a key? No, no key to worry about. Okay. Okay, so once we've done this, this is what I would say is a basic question analysis is. So you want to, before doing anything, this is what you want to be able to write down, think about in your planning. Like, once you've worked this out, then we move on to our next stage. So that's going on to what Gabby was wanting to talk about. So Gabby, what comes next after we've done this basic question analysis? Brilliant, yeah, key features. And we have between 2 to 4 key features. It's going to be different for every graph. Sometimes there are going to be more key features. Do we ever want to go over 4? No, it's too much. 4 is your absolute maximum. Okay, so make sure you're never going over 4 key features. Otherwise, your overview is inaccurate. What happens if our overview is not effective? What is the maximum score we can get for task response if the overview isn't very good? Mary says 6, Gabby says 5. So it's a band 6. So if you make a mistake with your overview, your task response is limited to a band 6. And again, we always want to find at least 2. So just 1 key feature is not sufficient. So looking at this, Often tables have quite a lot of features because there's a lot of information in them. So we've got to think about the important things. When thinking about key features for a compare and contrast chart like this is, what do we think about the most? What kind of things are we thinking about? Yeah, Gabby says highest and lowest. Exactly. So compare and contrast. You've got a table like this. We can just see it's 1 year. We're thinking about highest or lowest. So what do you think would be the key features to pick out here? What could you tell me about food, drink, and tobacco? Okay, so this is interesting. Gabby says Turkey is the highest. Is this sufficient? So Gabby's absolutely right. Turkey is unquestionably the highest. Is there anything else we should maybe mention for food, drink, and tobacco? Okay, and Gabby says Sweden is the lowest. So I would say that's not the key features. So one of them is a key feature. I think we need to add something and take something away. Look at those figures. What jumps out at you of those figures? Tamara says here, Ireland is next. So for me, Ireland and Turkey are quite considerably more than the others. So it's very good if you're thinking about highest and lowest, but don't always just think about the highest and the lowest. You might have a couple which are a lot higher than the other ones. So for me here, very, very important that Turkey and Ireland are the highest. So where was it? Food, drink, tobacco. Turkey and Ireland. Right. I remember at the moment we're just note taking, so you can do this in as few words as possible. Use symbols. If you prefer to just write ter and I, it's fine. We're planning. Doesn't matter if it's task 1 or task 2. We need to plan first. So whatever is the quickest for your notes and you understand it, keep it as short as possible. Okay, so we've got one feature. Is there a key feature for clothing and footwear? Anything jump out at you of being slightly different for everywhere else? Yeah, Rio says Italy. So nothing else really seems worth mentioning. All the others are about the same. Ireland, Spain, Sweden, Turkey, they're all about the same. But Italy is by far the highest for clothing and footwear. Do you think at this, do we need to mention that other things are lower? So Tamara said Sweden is the lowest. Is it substantially lower than anywhere else, Tamara? Yeah, so Tamara says no. And this is really important. So while definitely thinking about highest and lowest, think about things that like jump out of you. Like rather than, okay, that's the highest, that's the lowest. Like if it's the lowest, but it's the lowest, but only just the lowest, we don't really need to mention it. The Gabby essay is much better to mention these kind of things in details paragraphs. So we're trying to think about things that jump out at your eye. So obviously in a table, it's a little bit more difficult. Pie charts are a lot easier to see this because you'll see a big chunk is one particular category. Is anything really jumping out at you about leisure and education? So yeah, Turkey's the highest. Is it substantially higher? And yeah, Spain is the lowest. What can we maybe think about? What is more of a key feature? So rather than looking at these categories individually, what would you just say about leisure and education in general? Compared to, example, food, drinks, and tobacco. Looking at these numbers, are they big numbers or small numbers for leisure and education? And how about food, drinks, and tobacco? Yeah, Gabby says so. Leisure and education is the lowest number for all categories. And how about food, drinks, and tobacco? Highest. So to me, that's definitely a key feature. Like saying, okay, all of these are higher than all of these, and all of these are lower. So rather than again going into small detail, I think these would be our two next key features that we can mention. So okay, leisure and education, much lower percentage for all countries. Sorry, I can't type. Food, drink, tobacco, rest, percent for all. Okay, so if we look at this, we've got 4 key features. Do we want any more? Nope. So this is sufficient. 4 is absolutely fine. So we've picked out like the numbers where they're quite a lot bigger, so we can see individually, like Ireland, Turkey, definitely. So the most food, drinks, tobacco. Here, Italy, quite substantially. Spends a bit more on clothing and footwear, and then leisure and education is much lower than has much lower percentages. Food, drinks, and tobacco has the highest. When we're kind of organizing this, do you think we should talk about the general things first or the specific things first? When you're writing an overview. Yeah, general first. The way I would probably address this, so I'm just going to give you some numbers. So first, normally it makes more sense to talk about highest first, talk about leisure and education second. Then we can go into the specifics. To me, this is even like the most natural way to address this. What we could maybe do is like do food, drink, and tobacco, and then actually go into detail, a bit more detail about it. So it's second, and then we go third, fourth. To me, I think actually this is maybe a little bit more specific and like more logical, that we could talk about this being the first of all. Then with food, drink, and tobacco, Turkey and Ireland the highest. Leisure and education is the lowest. Clothing and football, Italy is the highest. When giving key features or writing overviews, do we ever give details? So am I going to say Turkey has 32%? No, exactly. We never want to give details on our overviews. Remember, our overview is talking about general trends, key features, and our details paragraphs is where we put our details in. So never put figures in your details paragraphs, because that's going to get you in all sorts of trouble. Okay, so once we have decided on our key features, what is our next step? So remember, we're still in the planning stage. So the final part of planning is what? So someone said paraphrase, someone said structure. So planning. Is paraphrasing planning? No. So you're jumping ahead. Paraphrasing is going to be our first part of the writing process. So we're still in planning, and yet structure is the next step. So when we have academic task 1 essays, how many paragraphs do they have? 4. Do they always have 4? Let's say if I have a map question, is it 4? Yeah. Is it a process question? Is it 4? Let's say for some strange reason, IELTS come up with a question that you've never seen before. It's like a combination of something you've never seen before. Is it still going to be 4 paragraphs? Yes, it's always going to be 4 paragraphs. What happens if we don't write 4 paragraphs? What happens to our coherence and cohesion score? So it's not going to be task response you get in trouble for, but your coherence cohesion is a band 5 immediately. So if you don't write a 4 paragraph essay with this structure, you will immediately get a band 5 for your coherence cohesion. So it's super important. And we don't want to combine the introduction and overview, which I see people do occasionally. We need these separate, and then we have our 2 details paragraphs. Okay, so details paragraph 1. We mentioned earlier that we're going to group by country. So we're going to put 3 countries in one, 2 countries in the other. What do you think would be the most logical way to group? Okay, so Gabby says Ireland, Italy, and Spain. Mary says Ireland, Turkey. Okay, so I'm going to agree with Mary here. Why has Mary said Ireland and Turkey? What is your thought process there, Mary? The highest for what? Food, drinks, and tobacco. Yeah. And why is it important that they're the highest for food, drinks, and tobacco? So of all the subcategories, this is what? This is the highest. This is the one. This is the most important subcategory. People are spending the highest percentage of their expenditure on food, drinks, and tobacco. So it makes the most sense to then choose the 2 from here. So we're going to have Ireland Turkey, and then we're going to have Italy, Spain, and Sweden. And that, for me, is the only logical way of grouping this data. Again, with grouping data, if you don't group in a logical fashion, what is the highest you can get for your coherence and cohesion? There it says 6. Actually, it's a band 5. So if you're not grouping in a logical way, the absolute maximum you can get for coherence and cohesion is a band 5. So this is a really, really important step of making sure that we're grouping in a logical way. So yeah, when we get tables, you quite often get this. As I said, remember, if you've got countries, we're going to group by countries because that makes the most logical sense. And then we're going to, with a table like this, we're going to find the chunk of the table, the subcategory, which is the highest, and then look at this. So we can see that Turkey and Ireland are clearly above everyone else. So that's how we're going to do this. Where are we? Turkey. And then Italy, Spain, and Sweden. There are often, you'll get some charts that you'll have options for your grouping. So I would say here we don't have options. The only thing that really makes sense is grouping this way. But sometimes you might get some various wells. If you're not sure if you're grouping, what I would really say is like make it very clear why you've grouped in your details paragraphs. Here I said it is pretty obvious, but you could maybe say, as for gender, men, and if you have men and women, it'd be very clear that, okay, I'm going on gender, or trying to make it very clear in your details paragraph why you're grouping in whichever way you do. Okay, so we've got through the planning stage. Okay, we've analyzed the question, we've decided this is the way we're going to answer it. We know it's a 4-paragraph essay. Then we've got paraphrasing. So when we're paraphrasing, let's have a look at the words that can be changed. Some very common words that could be changed. What else do we want to think about when paraphrasing, as well as synonyms? So before we hit the synonyms, Mary says move the in 2002. Yeah, so basically trying to change sentence structure if at all possible. So let's have a look at what we can come up with for synonyms. So table, and Tamara says chart. Yeah, that's good. Do we ever use the word below? Do we paraphrase this at all? No. Okay, so yeah, avoid the below part, because when you're writing, the table is not going to be below your writing. This is a word that never needs to be in there. Gives information on. Yeah, provides information about. Depicts information. I think you can get away with depicts here. I would use depict a little bit more often when we're talking about something that's more visual. So if we're talking about a line graph, or if we're talking about a bar graph, because we're trying to show it's more of a picture. So I think you could use it, but this would be a better expression. And as we don't need lots of different ones, let's just go with this. So we're going to go with the most obvious. So provides information about, fine. Consumer spending. The spending comes up a lot. consumer expenditure. This would be very common. Where is it? Consumers expenditure, customers expenditure. Yep. Just consumers expenditure. Where would the apostrophe go? So Mary in the chat put it like this. Would this be accurate? And if not, why not? Yeah, we put it after the S because we're talking about more than one consumer. But here we could also just use this as a common, a compound noun. So I think for me this is the most natural way it could be written. And then we had one other here. Yes, Ria, you would also do that with customers. It would be at the end. Or tomorrow's at the spending of consumer. So this would also work. You could write it like this. On different items. Various types of goods, yeah. Different products. Yeah, really, that also works. So I'm going to try and keep this as quick as possible so we can actually get on to looking at overviews and detailed paragraphs. So yeah, there's some good ideas that you guys have got. So yeah, different goods, different products. So fine. In 5 different countries. What can we do when this? So we could say in 5, let's say 5, various would be a little bit odd. Maybe keep the different. It's not a kind of nation. So you definitely have to say in. So we could do this, or we could just simply say what they are. If you're going to say what they are, don't say in 5 different nations which are, because it just gets too long. So what do we have? We have in Italy, Sweden, Turkey, Ireland, and so. Is this comma important when listing the different countries? Mary says yes. Why? Does anyone know the name of this comma? Tamara says the Oxford comma. Excellent. What happens if I get rid of this comma? Tamara says nothing. Gabby says nothing. That's not true. How many categories do I have now? Mary says 4, exactly. So what happens by taking away the comma is you put Ireland and Spain together. So we don't want to do that. So while you might hear some people say this is not important, I promise you, you are going to find some examiners that think it's very, very important. So while some of them are going to be like, oh, no, it's not a problem. As I said, we want to make sure that we are writing in a way that every examiner is going to be happy. Tamara says many natives don't use it. No, but many natives, Tamara, would not get the band score that you want to get in your writing exam. So just because native people make mistakes doesn't mean that we're going to make mistakes. We want to write as correctly as possible. There was actually a lawsuit in the US. Someone omitted this comma in an employment contract, and It went to court, and in court, the employee was awarded $5 million because in the contract, someone had made a mistake with this comma. So it's a very important comma, and it's definitely, if you don't understand it, look up the Oxford comma. Okay, so it is more important than many will leave you to believe. And again, a lot of native speakers don't have a great understanding of punctuation rules. But that's not us. We know how to use commas. And then we've got this in 2002. In 2002 is in 2002. What we could maybe do is say in the year, if you wanted to change it a little bit. Okay, so these, and we could put these together in our paraphrase. Let's have a look at how much time. So we're not actually going to write the paraphrase here in class. If you want to write the paraphrase, you can do this, post it to the Facebook group, and I will tell you if your paraphrases are accurate, because I want us to get on and have a look at the overview and details paragraphs before the end of this lesson. So you can use this information, write me some paraphrases, and I will tell you on our Facebook group how accurate they are. But these would be the kind of ideas that you want to be thinking about when paraphrasing, okay? These would be appropriate synonyms. So next I wanted to jump to our overview. So overview, we want to be thinking about these key features. So we said we're going to go in this order. We're going to talk about food, drink, tobacco. This is highest for all. Turkey and Ireland highest here. And then we've got leisure and clothing. So let's do this in two sentences. So the first sentence, we're going to try and make a complex sentence. We're going to choose this point here and this point here, and we're going to put these together into a complex sentence. When we start overviews, what is the word we always start an overview with? Exactly, overall. No need to come up with anything else, overall, and we need a comma after it. Okay, so it's an introductory phrase. So we have overall, and then we're going to have our points. So I'm going to give my students a few minutes to come up with their first sentence. Look back at the chart. Let me get the chart here so you can see it. So we can see what we're talking about. Anyone who's watching this at home on YouTube, try yourself and then compare your overview to the overviews that my students write and see if the feedback that I'm giving is appropriate to you as well. I said, if you're watching this at home, to think about the first sentence. And don't make the mistake of trying to get everything in one sentence. We're going to split this up into a couple of sentences to make it easy for the reader. But we were mentioning that this subcategory is the highest, and that in this subcategory, Ireland and Turkey have the highest figures. Remember, we're not giving exact figures because this is an overview, so we're talking in a general way. Okay, so we have a sentence here from Mary that we're going to have a look at. Thank you, Mary. Okay, so Mary said, overall in Ireland and Turkey, the consumers' expenditure on food, drinks, and tobacco were the highest in all countries. That Sweden was the lowest. Okay. Okay. So you want whereas here? So here, what did we say about mentioning Sweden? Was Sweden a key feature? No. So if it's not a key feature, do we put it in our overview? No. So we can't put this in because, sure, it's true. What you're saying is true, but the fact is we already have 4 key features that we've highlighted here. If we start talking about Sweden and everything else, we're just going to put too much in. We're not going to have an effective overview. So overall in Turkey and Ireland, the consumers' expenditure on food, drinks, and tobacco were the highest. So what is our subject, which this verb agrees with? So yeah, we want was, but why? So let's have a look. We've got this big noun phrase here. So we've got a noun phrase, and then we've got a prepositional phrase. So we know whatever is in the prepositional phrase, which is this part here, this is additional information. So nothing in here is our main noun. So then we've got this part. So we've got really a choice, consumers or expenditure. Consumers is modifying the word expenditure. So this is the main noun. So of all of this big noun phrase, we've got to conjugate to expenditure. So the consumer's expenditure on food, drinks, and tobacco was the highest in all countries. So this doesn't make a lot of sense. So here we're trying, it looks like we're trying to say two things. I think you're trying to say Ireland and Turkey were the highest, yeah, of the group. So rather than in all countries, the Tamara says, yeah, we could use among, or think of another preposition. Shorter, easier. Preposition, 2 letters, begins with O. Oh, exactly. Okay, so this is the more natural way of saying this. So something is the highest of. So in Ireland, Turkey, the consumers' expenditure of food, drinks, and tobacco was highest of all countries. So here we've mentioned this part, but we also wanted to talk about this part. So we want to have a look at this and also mention that this subcategory is the highest for everyone. How can we add that into here? And we said we were going to do that part first because this is a bit more detail-y. So overall, so the percentage. The 2 things we can talk about here is the percentage or the expenditure. So we already mentioned the expenditure, so let's do the percentage here to vary things a little bit. The percentage, see what the language is, national consumer expenditure. So just simply the percentage was the highest all countries. Say expenditure. What's the highest for all countries for food, drinks, and tobacco, and so we can say add this here in Ireland and Turkey. The consumer's expenditure. So we've kind of already mentioned this. So how can I make this a little bit less repetitive? So if we've already mentioned it, what can we use to reduce repetition? One word, one short, simple word, 2 letters. It, exactly. So to stop us repeating. All right. Percentage expenditure was highest for all countries for food, drinks, and tobacco in Ireland and in Ireland, Turkey. Well, actually, sorry, I'm going to change this a bit. Ireland, Turkey. How do we do Ireland, Turkey? What do they do? What is the verb that they're doing? So a verb for expenditure. Expenditure is our noun. So Gabby says spending, but remember we want to be using the past simple. Spent. Okay, overall the cities in it, and Ireland and Turkey spent. Oh, I'm about to make a mistake. I'm very sorry. Yeah, I was about to say spent the highest. What is the problem here? What is the mistake that the trap I almost fell into? Are we talking about how much they spent? So are we seeing an amount? Do we know how much they spent? No. So I almost fell for that trap. So, and Ireland and Turkey's expenditure of percentage. Percentage or percentage expenditure. Was the highest. Or so sorry if I confused you a little bit there, but I almost fell into a trap. I was thinking we were talking about the amount. So this is what I was kind of looking for here. So overall, the percentage expenditure was the highest for all countries for food, drinks, and tobacco. So this covers point 1. Yep. And then we're adding this more detailed part, and Ireland and Turkey's percentage expenditure was the highest of all 5 countries. So this is one way of looking at both of these. Okay, so sorry if I confused you at all, but this would be an appropriate way to combine both of these key features. So I know my students have come up with some more, so let's have a look at what else you said. So let's use this as a model answer to help people. And can you guys post your answers again? Thank you, tomorrow. So overall, food, drink, and tobacco is the highest category among others. So this highest category among doesn't work. So of, well, here, if we just say highest, let's keep it nice and simple, is the highest category. Because if you're the highest category, you are automatically of all the categories. That's why we're using a superlative. So we can just say this. Overall, food, drink, and tobacco is the highest category, where Turkey had the highest figure and Ireland was the next. Here I would say the next highest. What would be a little bit strange about this verb? So we want to be consistent. So we said Turkey had the highest figure and Ireland was the next higher. So to be more consistent, instead of was, yeah, well done, Mary. Yeah, we would say had. So it just keeps consistent. Whereas Turkey had the highest figure and Ireland had the next highest. Okay. Can we make this a little bit concise? More concise? Parallelism, yeah. So rather than focusing on Turkey as the highest, Ireland next, because we're almost got separate points here, how do I put these two together? So whereas Turkey, do this so we can all see it. Oh, no, that's fine. So where Turkey had, so let's put them together. Where Turkey and Ireland had the highest figures. So here a lot more concise, yeah. We just put them together. This is now very clearly one key feature. When we talk about Turkey had the highest, Ireland had the second highest, that to me looks like a number of key features. Whereas here, Turkey and Ireland had the highest figures. This is one feature. Okay, so it's a lot more concise and we're keeping our word count down. Okay, so Gabby's got an overview we're going to look at. Just going to get rid of this so we have a bit more space on the page. So overall, the highest percentage of all the national consumer expenditures for all countries was for food, drink, and tobacco. I think this is just a typo, yeah. And Ireland and Turkey percentage was the highest figures of all. So what do we need to put here? Because the percentage belongs to Ireland, the percentage belongs to Turkey. So what do we do when we want to show that something belongs to something in English? Yeah, excellent. We need the possessive S's. So overall, the highest percentage of all the national consumer expenditures for all countries was for food, drink, and tobacco, and Ireland's and Turkey's percentage was the highest figures. Here, it looks a bit strange because it looks like it's 1%. So what I would do here to make this a bit more natural is an Ireland and Turkey's percentages were the highest figures. But definitely combining both of our ideas, very clearly just two main ideas. I thought this was really well written. Good job. I think that was Gabby. So well done. Do we have any other overviews that we can have a look at? Oh, a common mistake I just want to point out that a lot of students will do here. They will write because they will look at this graph and they go, look, it's capitalized, it's capitalized. Tamara goes, no, why no? Why is it capitalized in the chart? But why do we not write the capitals? Yeah, it's not a proper noun. So when you are writing a category, a heading in a chart, so here you'll notice that everything is capitalized. See the word country, the word food, the word drink, tobacco, clothing, footwear. That's because in titles of categories, you need to use capital letters. But when you're writing, we don't use capital letters because we have to use them appropriately for the context we're using them. And here, food, drink, and tobacco are not capital, not proper nouns. Whereas Ireland and Turkey are names for countries, so these are capitalized because they should. Oh, Gabby said, what about writing food? Good question. What do we think about this? Yeah, Tamara says no. Again, no. We're never going to be writing with these backslashes. Again, the reason they've done it is that would be the most natural way to write it in a chart. But when you're actually writing for yourself, you need to write in a grammatically correct way. So we do not write lists with backslashes, we write lists with commas. So we need to make sure that we're writing in a grammatically correct way. So this would be the correct way to express that. Ria, did you have an overview that you would like me to have a look at? I'm not getting a response, so I'm going to assume that's a no. Okay, so we've kind of run a little bit over time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this lesson here, and then next week we're going to have a look at doing the details paragraphs. So then we can make a whole lesson on how to write the full details paragraphs for paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. If anyone at home wants to try writing, have a look at these overviews, make sure that you're writing like this, and then try and add the second 2 points. So remember, we had the slide for you. We also need to mention about leisure and education and clothing and footwear. So for everyone in this class, if you would like to write the full overview, you can put it in the chat in our Facebook group, and I will tell you how your overviews are, your full overviews, before we come to next week's lesson, okay? And also you can do that for the paraphrases, that you can use the information that we've got in charts done in class and try and write that overview and try and write the paraphrases. As I said, next lesson we are going to have a look then at the details paragraphs for 1 and 2. And anyone at home, if you've got questions, come join the Facebook group or leave them in the comments of this video. Thank you once again to all of my students who have contributed and helped us make this lesson, and good luck to you in all of your studies. So have a great week. I'll catch you all soon.